few modern royal stories have been as emotionally charged, publicly dissected, and historically consequential as the triangle involving Prince Charles, Camilla Parker Bowles, and Princess Diana. What began as a private entanglement gradually evolved into a global drama that exposed the contradictions at the heart of the British monarchy, between tradition and transparency, duty and desire, image and reality. This was not merely a scandal about infidelity. It was a collision between centuries-old royal customs and a new media age that refused to look away. From private circles to public scrutiny, Camilla Parker Bowles spent much of her early adult life far from the glare of public obsession. Born into a comfortable, well-connected family, she grew up in the English countryside, enjoying a stable childhood defined by horses, social gatherings, and an ease within upper-class society. Educated at elite schools, she emerged as a confident, socially adept young woman in London's aristocratic circles during the late 1960s and early 1970s. It was within this world that she met Prince Charles. Their connection, formed in 1972, was immediate and deeply personal. Camilla offered Charles something he had rarely experienced: emotional warmth without judgment. She understood his humor, soothed his insecurities, and treated him not as a future king, but as a man. Yet despite their closeness, Camilla was never considered a suitable bride. Royal expectations were rigid. A future king was expected to marry a young, aristocratic woman with an unblemished past. Camilla, independent and experienced, did not fit the mold. When Charles left to pursue his naval career, Camilla married Andrew Parker Bowles in 1973. Their marriage placed her firmly back into respectable society, but it did not sever her emotional bond with Charles. Diana enters the story. By the late 1970s, pressure mounted on Prince Charles to marry. He was approaching his 30s, and the monarchy needed an heir. Enter Lady Diana Spencer, young, aristocratic, and seemingly perfect for the role. At just 19, Diana stepped into a world she scarcely understood. She was shy, emotionally sensitive, and profoundly unprepared for the rigid expectations placed upon her. While the public saw a fairy tale unfolding, Diana privately sensed that something was wrong. Camilla, still deeply embedded in Charles's life, was initially presented to Diana as a friend. No one warned her of the depth of the relationship. The silence from both the royal family and her own relatives left Diana isolated, confused, and increasingly distressed. The truth revealed itself slowly, through phone calls, lingering absences, and emotional distance. By the time Charles and Diana married in 1981, the emotional triangle was already firmly established. The marriage behind the mask. Publicly, Charles and Diana embodied the image of a modern royal couple. Their wedding captivated the world. Their tours drew enormous crowds. Diana's charisma transformed her into a global icon almost overnight. Privately, the marriage was unraveling. Charles remained emotionally attached to Camilla, maintaining frequent contact with her. Diana, increasingly aware of the betrayal, struggled with profound insecurity and loneliness. She developed bulimia and depression, conditions hidden behind carefully rehearsed public appearances. The monarchy, prioritizing stability and image, encouraged silence. Diana was expected to endure, to smile, and to perform her role without complaint. Charles, raised in a tradition where royal men often took mistresses, failed to grasp that public tolerance for such behavior had changed. Media, manipulation, and exposure. As the years passed, the strain became impossible to conceal. Diana, once protected by palace secrecy, found her pain dismissed as emotional instability. Palace sources suggested her suffering was exaggerated, even imagined. In 1992, the narrative shifted dramatically. A biography revealed the truth of Diana's unhappiness and Charles's affair with Camilla. For the first time, the public saw behind the palace walls, and the reaction was unforgiving. Camilla became the most vilified woman in Britain. She was portrayed as the destroyer of a fairy tale, the shadow figure behind Diana's suffering. Tabloid coverage was relentless, cruel, and deeply personal. Diana, meanwhile, discovered the power of the press. She learned how media attention could be used both as a shield and a weapon. Yet the exposure came at a cost, intensifying the emotional toll on all involved. Tradition collides with the new age. At the heart of the crisis was a monarchy struggling to adapt. For generations, the royal family had carefully curated an image of moral stability and traditional family values. Divorce, infidelity, and emotional conflict were hidden or quietly managed. But the late 20th century changed everything. The rise of mass media and public scrutiny made secrecy impossible. The public no longer accepted silent suffering as a virtue, especially from a young woman they had embraced as a princess. Charles, raised to believe his personal life was secondary to duty, found himself trapped between two worlds. His emotional dependence on Camilla clashed with the role he was expected to play as heir to the throne and future head of the Church of England. Public confessions and private consequences. In the early 1990s, both Charles and Diana broke their silence. Diana's television interview, in which she openly discussed her marriage and her pain, shocked the nation. Her honesty transformed public perception. She was no longer a distant royal figure, but a vulnerable human being. Charles followed with his own confession, admitting to adultery. Unlike Diana's revelations, his admission was met with outrage rather than sympathy. The confession confirmed years of denial and reinforced accusations of hypocrisy. The fallout was devastating. Camilla's marriage ended. Charles and Diana divorced. The monarchy's reputation suffered lasting damage. Diana's death and its aftermath. The sudden death of Princess Diana in 1997 altered everything. Public grief was overwhelming, elevating Diana to an almost mythic status. In contrast, Camilla retreated from view, aware that public sentiment was unforgiving. For Charles, Diana's death removed both a source of conflict and a moral reckoning. The rivalry that had defined his private life ended abruptly, but the consequences remained. In the years that followed, Charles and Camilla carefully rebuilt their public presence. They appeared together gradually, avoiding overt displays. Over time, public hostility softened, replaced by reluctant acceptance. Camilla's long road to acceptance. Camilla's transformation from vilified mistress to accepted royal partner was neither swift nor easy. She focused on charity work, avoided public confrontation, and remained largely understated in her approach. Behind the scenes, she provided Charles with emotional stability, something he had lacked for much of his life. Friends and associates consistently described her as grounding, practical, and supportive. Crucially, acceptance from Prince William and Prince Harry became a turning point. Their willingness, however cautious, to acknowledge Camilla signaled a shift within the family itself, a relationship that endured. What ultimately distinguished Charles and Camilla's relationship was its endurance. Spanning decades of secrecy, scandal, and sacrifice, it survived public condemnation, personal loss, and institutional resistance. In 2005, they married, quietly, without grandeur, and with careful attention to public sensitivity. It was not the fairy tale once promised to Diana, but it was honest. Camilla never sought to replace Diana in public memory. Instead, she occupied a different role, one defined less by spectacle and more by persistence. Legacy of a Royal Triangle. The story of Charles, Camilla, and Diana reshaped the monarchy's relationship with the public. It exposed the dangers of rigid tradition, the cost of emotional repression, and the impossibility of maintaining perfect images in an age of transparency. Diana remains a symbol of compassion, vulnerability, and defiance. Camilla stands as a testament to endurance and adaptation. Charles, shaped by both women, ascended the throne carrying the lessons of a lifetime lived under scrutiny. This was not simply a love triangle, it was a reckoning. And its echoes continue to define the modern British monarchy. If you enjoyed this deep dive into how Charles, Camilla, and Diana reshaped the modern monarchy, don't forget to like and subscribe.